Hello friends, this is Cara-Renee with B.Reborn Art and Healing, coming to you with my Sunday's Art of Truth for the month of January. You might notice that my voice is not matching my hands, and that's because this is a voiceover. The real-time creating of this was nearly 3 hours long, and I could not edit it down enough to make it viewable for you all. So I decided to go ahead and remove all the audio that I was doing in real time and do a voiceover. So I'm working on a mixed media project today on a 9x12 MDF board. I'm working on this project for my granddaughter who is turning 13 in a few weeks. And I wanted to create this piece around this idea of becoming her, and just writing a blog post about what that means to me as a Grammy watching her grow up, but also what it's like for me as a woman and as a person who used to be a little girl, and how just her experiences are so different from mine. And she's so beautiful, and she's so silly, and she is herself, like she is her authentic self. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to watch. So I'm creating this canvas, or this mixed media piece rather, for her birthday. I've done this every year for the last several years. When she was younger, I used to sew for her, and I've done mixed media boxes and things for her before, but I've been more doing things that she can hang on her wall. So that's what we're working on today. So there'll be parts of this that I have cut out, and I'm separating out so that you guys can see when I'm breaking to dry and stuff. There's a lot of dry time in this mixed media journey because we're drying between every layer, because we're applying paper, then we're applying paint, and then we're applying stamping, and then we're applying texture paste and all that kind of stuff. So that's what you're going to be seeing here today. So the supplies that I have out are my Liquitex modeling paste, my Liquitex fluid matte medium, a variety of golden fluid acrylics in yellow medium, manganese blue, green gold, raw umber, and Nicolazo yellow, and then that is Amsterdam quinacridone rose. So I've got my rubber brush out there. I thought it would be useful to apply my papers. It did not end up working well, so I do set that aside and use a brush. So I'm going to let you go ahead and watch here until we get to the point where we're going to start putting the papers on, and then that part is sped up a little bit because you don't need to see it in real time. So I've got some stamps out as well, and before I forget, that we'll be using to do some accent stamping after we've applied our paper and some paint. So again, that's all going to make sense as this happens. So I do again apologize. I do not like voiceovers. I used to do them all the time because mixed media was all I did on my channel. And it's tricky for me. I haven't done it in a long time, so I'm hoping that this is not too broken up and is smooth enough for you guys to follow and be inspired. So I picked these stitch stamps because I was thinking about how we are stitched together by our experiences, by our parenting models, by our personality, and all of those things. And so the stitch stamps really spoke to me for that reason. And then I also picked some Sam Poole stamps. I did not end up using those, but you'll see as we go along. So I did print my words in several fonts and sizes. I printed this one on tissue paper, and the other is printed on regular 65-pound copy paper. It was a good thing that I printed it on copy paper, because when I went to adhere the tissue paper version onto the piece that it was going to go on, it bled. And I don't know why it bled, because I've done this dozens and dozens of times and I've never had that problem. So I'm not sure what happened there, but we did have a backup plan. So we do yet end up using the Mandela stencil and this script. I didn't end up using the Tim Holtz, the honeycomb one. And then the butterfly is our focal image, because when I think about becoming, I'm always thinking about the process that we grow through and how butterflies go through metamorphosis. So do we, as we grow and as we move from one stage of our life to another. So, and I was just talking there about some of the tones and colors in the butterfly that I wanted to definitely bring out. My daughter Kenzie is not a pink girl by any means, but this was the butterfly that spoke to me the most as I was trying to get some inspiration for this project. So, and I think here I was probably talking to you a little bit about the butterfly concept. So, yeah, so it makes me to take so long, you guys. I'm sorry. So talking hands, forgive the talking hands. So I'm going to talk about the papers here in just a second. Oh, we're going to ink black around the butterfly just to make it pop out a little bit better. And so the papers that I picked, I generally pick at least three of each kind of paper and each tone. So I have some book pages there, and I usually do them in threes or odd numbers. And then some really vintage music pages. I really liked that word amore, but I didn't end up using it. I completely forgot about it. And then I've got some images there. The ones that you see with the yellow tones, those are from Sean Petit collage packs. It was just in my scrap drawer, so I decided to go ahead and use it, and then some other scraps from my scrap bin. So we're going to be adhering those with Liquitex Fluid Matte Medium, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the next step. So I'm going to go ahead and set this to music now, and I'll come back to you on the other side. Okay, now that that is dry, every time you see that transition, that's when I went to dry. So we're going to come in with some gesso and push back some of the colors here. So I do use a couple of different techniques here. I start out with a palette knife because I really like the scrapey lines that I get. I like some of those hard lines, but then I also do come in with my fingers, I believe, if I remember correctly, and move it around a little bit with my fingers. So this process is very satisfying. I love So it may look kind of counterintuitive to be putting this much gesso on the background because we put all those papers down, right? But you'll be able to see as we move along how at different points, I'll try to catch it in the video as it is sped up a little bit. And show you where the script is showing through, where the letters there on the right side are showing through. It's just really magical, and it's not really something that you can, I mean, I suppose you could manufacture it and plan it, but it's just not as fluid and natural. But when it happens naturally and you're surprised by it, it's really, really cool. So again, here's where I transitioned to my finger, because I didn't want all the lines to be really hard and sketchy. I wanted some of them to be more blendy. So that's what we're doing. And as you can see, we are covering up a lot of those papers, especially the ones with some of the yellow tones in it that we had, that I showed you earlier. But again, it's part of the process. The layers are the most beautiful part of this whole journey, is knowing what the layers meant. Because as always, when I'm thinking mixed media inspiration and I'm doing a Sunday's Art of Truth, which in fact, I don't know that I mentioned what that actually is. So I do the art piece, and then I do a blog post where I talk about what the piece meant to me and what I was thinking and how I was processing it and what it means to me. So what does it mean to be becoming her, and what do the layers mean? So that's, the layers mean something. So there we go. That is nice and dry now. And again, I just love the look. It almost looks kind of abstract at this point. And but anyway, back to the layers. So when I'm creating mixed media, I think about things like the layers of our lives and how the layers of our story, the people that we meet, the experiences that we have, again, they are all overlaid on top of each other, and they make us who we are. Our experiences and the people that we encounter make us, they're always transforming us. So layers are very meaningful. So that is the Nicolezo yellow and the yellow medium, I believe. And so I'm spraying, I put some water on there on the palette, on the plate there, and also on the MDF board here, the substrate. And I'm just going to let you watch here for a little bit while I apply the Nicolezo yellow and the yellow medium to various places on the canvas, and then we'll be drying in between, and then we'll come back with some more colors. And then we went ahead and dried that, so now we're ready for the next layer. I'm just comparing the butterfly and the tones. I'm not sure how well those are picking up on camera with what I already have on the substrate. So I'm coming in with a manganese blue, and I was surprised by this color, maybe just because of the way it was mixing with the yellow, because maybe the yellow wasn't completely dry, but it created a really pretty blue. It was leaning towards turquoise or teal, which I actually thought was really quite pretty, and so I was happy with that. But I'm just doing the same process where I'm just using that round brush and just moving that paint around. And because I'm doing the voiceover, I forgot to mention that the golden fluid acrylics are very transparent, which is why I like them. So that's why you can see layers under even this blue paint. It's not opaque, and I love that. I love that about this series of colors. Now, even within a brand, you're going to have more opaque colors always than and more transparent colors. These just happen to be very transparent. So I really love them. I mean, they're a little bit spendy, but I feel like they're worth it because they give me the results that I want. And there are other makers, there are other brands that sell fluid acrylics too, so you might want to check into those. I heard that what's that one that makes the paints and the acrylic inks? I can't think of it right off the top of my head. If I do think about it, I'll put it in the video description box. But because I looked them up and they looked very, very cool. I think I saw them over on Suzanne Rose Art when she was doing her a lot of jelly printing that I was watching. So, and just coming in with more yellow. I wasn't super happy with the volume of the blue that I was getting, so I'm just going back and forth between those colors to get the tones that I'm really aiming for, which again, in the mixed media process, you don't necessarily know what you're looking for. You kind of intuitively feel it as you move through the piece, and as you gain your experience in this medium, you kind of get more of a sense of what your kind of style and what you're looking for is. So there's another look at that. I can see that we're really covered the yellow there. I wanted the yellow to be pulled out of that butterfly, which was good. And I don't think too much, and I'm not sure why there's such a pause here, so let's see what happens. I was getting my sap green, so I wanted to bring in a little bit of a darker tone of green, because I was noticing that in the butterfly wings that there were some darker passages of color that I thought would be pretty on the base here before we move on. So again, this is just sap green hue. I believe it's the Liquitex Heavy Body Paint Artist Acrylic. And so just continuing that process of just putting it here and there wherever it kind of looked like. I mean, again, when you start playing in this medium and you start just really saturating yourself in the play of it, you kind of figure out what looks good to you. I can't tell you what looks good to you, and there's no magic formula. You just have to play and experiment. So I would get out your acrylics. They don't have to be fluid acrylics. They could be any acrylic that you have, and you're gonna have fun. That's the most important part. So okay, we've given that a good dry, and so now I just want to show you a close-up of all that text that I was mentioning and what kind of surprisingly shows through. You can see the letters on the right hand side. I don't know that I paused very well, but over there by my hand on the right, you can see those letters that were going down, and then the script is really cool that I'm seeing in the lighter passages of the substrate. So that's really cool as well. Again, I love that surprise. I didn't plan that. I didn't try that. I did want those letters that were on the right side to show, so that was pretty cool. So couldn't get my lid on this paint to save my life. I'm going to have to probably put it in a bag because I still can't get it on even after just stopping the video. So it's all cruddy around the edges. So now we're going to come in with a little bit of pink. This is the quinacridone Rose from Amsterdam. And I have had trouble finding just the right tone of pink that I want. So that's why this is probably the only, I think I have some Amsterdam inks, but that's pretty much it. So I start with this this brush, this kind of rectangular brush. It did not work for me, so I do start going in with some other, can't remember if I chose a brush or I went in with my finger, but I'm going to let you watch this as I just kind of spread out a little bit of pink accents around the substrate, this panel as well, just to get a little bit of the pink. I want a little bit of pink to draw out the pink in the butterfly. Okay, that is nice and dry, ready for the next step, and just another close-up with that pink. I think it's a really great accent, and just enough, not too much. So we're going to come in and do some stamping and some stenciling with modeling paste. So I was thinking, oh, here, I'm so sorry. I was talking about how you do want to make sure that that layer is really dry before you start putting stencils down, because your stencils, when you pull them up, if it's wet, you can actually pull up your paper that's underneath your paint, and then you have a disaster. I mean, I'm telling you, it's a disaster. It's hard to fix. So I thought I was going to start here with the stenciling, but then realized that I am going to back up and come in and do some stamping with the stitch stamps and the a little bit of a script stamp, and then I pull another stamp with some circles on it for just some background interest in black. So I'm going to let you go ahead and watch that part, and then I'll start talking again when we get to the stenciling. Okay, we are ready for some stenciling. Now I do use archival ink, so I didn't have to dry between those layers because I know that that ink is not going to move because it's permanent upon application. So I'm using this script stencil, and I will try to link it. And my Liquitex flexible modeling paste, it is my favorite modeling paste because it dries super hard. And I love it unless I'm super impatient, and then I can have trouble. So I'm not applying this. So I've laid the stencil down entirely in its size, but I'm not going to stencil everywhere on it. I'm going to do a little bit here and then at the bottom, and then I'm going to move the stencil and do the other edge. So we're just finishing up here with this stenciling, and then we're going to go ahead and give this a quick dry, and then we'll come in with the Mandela stencil and the same flexible modeling paste. And in between, I did go ahead and wash off my stencil. Otherwise, that modeling paste will dry hard and it can be very problematic. So I'm going to be strategically placing this stencil in 3 different places on the substrate. So in the lower right hand corner, the left side, and then the upper right hand corner or upper right side. So and I was talking here in real time about how important it is when you're using modeling paste and a stencil that you actually don't leave an excess modeling paste on top of the stencil, because when you pull that stencil up, you're going to get a lot of peaks in your modeling paste, and that can be not desired in certain projects. So I did have a little bit of trouble with the stencil, and I think it's because the areas of the stencil are so fine, and so I did have some blurring of the image, but in the end I thought it just added to the whole project, and I was happy with it. So again, I'm just going to set this next little bit to music and let you finish watching where I put this in, and I'm doing it in the exact same fashion as you see here. And there was a moment when I was done with the stenciling that I thought about not doing a raw umber glaze, and in case I didn't mention that, my plan in the beginning was to do a raw umber glaze. And if you've been watching my videos, you probably know what I'm talking about, but it's basically where I apply a solution of matte medium and raw umber fluid acrylic, and I paint it over the entire surface, the substrate, and then I wipe it off, and it gives this really grungy look. It leaves this grungy look behind, but I was really liking this white. But then as I was drawing this section, I just thought, I just can't do it. I need a little bit of the grunge. So I need to step out of that box, and I might, in Mixed Media 101, we might play around a little bit with some projects where we don't do a glaze, so that I can learn and grow as well. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the music on now. So just going to do a quick dry here and wash my stencil off, and I'll be back and we can continue on to the next step. So this is nice and dry. It is important, especially when there's so much modeling paste, to make sure that it's very, very dry. I did have a little bit of problems in one of the upper sections because it wasn't completely dry, and it created kind of a really gummy surface there in a little bit of that stencil design. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this raw umber glaze, and this is 1 part paint to 2 parts of fluid matte medium. You can use regular acrylics, just as I mentioned I think before. You don't have to have the golden fluid acrylics, you don't have to have artist grade anything. You can use what you have, you can use the cheapest of what you can find. It's totally up to you, but it's 1 part paint to 2 parts fluid matte medium, and then you're painting it on the whole surface, and then you can use a baby wipe, or I like a baby wipe because it's gentle. I imagine you could use a wet paper towel or a wet rag of some kind, but you do want a little bit of moisture as well. So we're going to use the baby wipe and kind of pat on the stencil part, and then rub out the part that doesn't have a lot of the texture, just so that we can bring back the color that's in that background, because I knew that it would be dulled down by doing the glaze, but I knew that we could pull a lot of it up, and I was really happy with the balance. I got my grunge fix, but I also was able to retain the brightness in the piece, and it turned out absolutely beautiful. It very much looks like my Kenzie girl, so I'm super happy with it. So that area right there that I just touched is where it was a little bit soft and gooey. And so I do spend a little bit more time drying that here in a little bit, just to make sure that we don't have a problem with it in the future. So just coming back over some of the text modeling paste stenciling to brighten that up a little bit. And yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and let you watch here, and we're going to go ahead and dry, and I'll be back with you after the dry. we're going to come back in with a manganese blue over some of that stenciling. I felt like it needed that to kind of bring it out of the grunge a little bit. And I like how it turned out. So I'm going to go ahead and let you watch this for just a little bit. So everything is nice and dry, we can move on to the next step. So I decided to go ahead and set that aside and get our corrugated cardboard out, which is what I selected to put my quote on. And so I'm just ripping a piece and comparing it to the words just to see how long it needs to be. And you're going to see as we move along that I did have some problems with the words that were printed on the tissue paper. When I applied the matte medium to the top of it, it ran, and I don't know why that happened, because I've done it before, and usually if I heat set it with my heat tool, I don't have any trouble. So what we're doing here now, but I'll let you see that here as we come along to that part. So I'm going to apply a layer of gesso here just to seal this cardboard, because it is just compressed paper, so it will absorb all of the paint if it doesn't have a barrier. So we're doing that. We're going to give that a good dry, and then I'm going to give it a layer of the raw umber glaze, as you're going to see right here, just to kind of grunge it up and take away that that stark white color. So yeah. And then we're going to also apply a little bit of the pink paint and the yellow paint, I believe the yellow medium, to just add a little bit of accents on the ridges of that cardboard, as well as a little bit on the base. So I'm going to let you watch here. Oh, we're going to dry this a moment. So sorry, I'm getting weary from this editing. So I forgot, because I was going to put my words on tissue paper, I needed to put it on another piece of something. So I picked a piece of chipboard out of my scrap drawer, and my plan was to go ahead and apply or attach the tissue paper to that. But you're going to see here, I'm going to let this just roll in real time here for a few minutes and let you see what happened. So I didn't want to put the quote just on the chipboard because it's really plain, so I decided to go ahead and use the yellow paint, and I just used my finger and just put a bunch of paint on top of that piece of chipboard so that my tissue paper has something to sit on, because it wouldn't work on the ridges of the cardboard. So but again, as we move along, you're going to see that it didn't work out so well, which I always have two copies of the quote or word I'm using, because things happen and I don't have the option to stop what I'm doing and print another one or whatever. So again, I had printed it on copy paper as well as on the tissue paper. So I'll be investigating and seeing what happened and why this didn't work well. But you're going to see here in a second, it wasn't frustrating, it was just disappointing, because I had this in my head what I wanted to do, and it just didn't work out. So I'm applying a little bit of that pink too, realizing that I could potentially get a little bit of orange tint, because red and yellow make orange, or pink and orange would. Pink and yellow would also make a shade of orange, but it didn't. It was just perfect. Just enough of a little bit of color pop to make that what's going to sit on top of it kind of stand out a little bit better than if it was just brown. So messy. I was so covered. I was like thinking about my hands, and the nail ladies and whatever, they always give me a hard time. But that's all right. Can't remember why I was using the black archival ink again. This is weird. The butterfly? I don't know. Let's see together. Yes, the butterfly. I wanted to frame out that butterfly with some black archival ink just to make it have a little bit of better chance to pop off the background, and it worked like a charm. I'm not a big fan of the black archival ink because it kind of looks charcoaly and just kind of nasty, and it's not my favorite thing, but it worked out for this purpose just really well. So now we're going to go ahead and try to apply the tissue paper to that piece of painted chipboard, and the not so magical thing is going to happen. So I'm going to cut, and I think I was going to talk about this now, where I did actually talk about how I heat set it in real time, and I did heat set it, but I don't know what happened. It was not enough apparently. So, but that's okay. Things happen, and we just kind of roll with it. So I'm just measuring out there to see how long I need that to be. Even though that bottom part's crooked, it's not a problem. My intention was to just wrap it around the back if it hung over, or just trim it off, but didn't end up using the tissue paper at all. So as you're gonna see, but in my opinion, you just have to roll with it. I mean, it's frustrating to have your plan kind of go awry, but it happens, and we just need to hold on to the joy and not let it get us down. So I'm just trimming a bit more of that off, a little bit too long, and I'm going to get my fluid matte medium here and put a layer of that on the yellow chipboard, and then I'm going to put my tissue sentiment on top of that, and that's where we ran into problems. That's when it started to run. So I'm going to let you go ahead and listen and watch here. So yeah, that happened. Now we're on to plan B, but it all worked out fine in the end. What I love about using tissue paper is that if you put it directly on a project and you don't like it, you can actually just rub it off. It's not permanent. So unless it's completely dried, and even when it is, you can like absorb, put a bunch of water on it, it's going to just come right off. So I was just testing that to make sure that my print on the copy paper wasn't going to run. You might have saw a little bit of a black tint, but that was because I had ink on my brush. So that wasn't the ink running. So it worked out just fine. So I'm just trimming that up, and I'm going to go ahead and dry this a couple times because I'm going to dry it, then we're going to put a raw umber glaze on that, and then we're going to dry it again, and then we'll move on to the next step. To that little strip that we have the quote on. And then what I was realizing there is I didn't need to put it on the yellow chipboard because it's not tissue paper anymore. So I can put it directly on the corrugated cardboard base. So using a little bit of that manganese blue, and I think I come in with a little bit of the yellow as well. I can't quite recall. It might have just been the blue on this top piece. And then we're going to adhere that to the corrugated cardboard with just some Fabri-Tac. I think I toyed with the idea of getting out my matte gel, but that was not necessary. And as you saw there, we did have a quick dry. But again, the Fabri-Tac, since I'm a junk journaler, I've learned that Fabri-Tac can do a lot of things that some of my mixed media mediums can also do. So, So I just went ahead and did it with I'm going to do it with the Fabri-Tac. So we're going to come in with some iridescent gold fine. This is a golden fluid acrylic as well. And I'm just going to go over all that texture, the mandala texture, not the script. And I was kind of on the fence about how I felt about this, but once it's done, it's done. If I really hate it before I actually give it to her, I could always do something different on top of that. But for now, we're just going to go with the gold. In person, I don't know what it looks like on camera in your view as I'm editing, but the colors were beautiful. They were beautiful. The blue was perfect. The gold just added a little bit of magic, and I loved it. I was super happy with it, so I probably won't do anything more with it. I'll just give it to her as it is. But I always love to add a little bit of gold to my projects. It just adds a little extra touch that I really enjoy. And just putting a little bit of gold around the edges as well. Okay, we're going to go ahead and adhere the butterfly, and I'm kind of leaning towards the middle there. Once I get the Fabri-Tac on the back of it, I do have to fuss with it a little bit and get it centered. I thought about putting it more in that open space, but I didn't want to lose all that beautiful color that's on the right side there. So I forgot, we are going to do some white splatter. So again, the jury is out over whether or not this was a good choice. I mean, in the end project, it looks fine, but I don't know that I would necessarily do that again. But you never know until you try, and that's kind of how you learn the look that you want. But I needed to bring back some white, because white and black are both neutralizing colors, and they help to make your project look complete and make it look unified. So I'm just using a fan brush to splatter that white paint. I just took a little bit of some thicker heavy body paint and added some water to it, and I'm just dipping my brush into that and then doing some splattering. So yeah, and then I think I do take a moment to dry this, just because I wanted to make sure I didn't get my arms or my hands in the wet paint as I was getting ready to put the butterfly and the sentiment on. But you'll see that here in just a second. We'll come back after the dry. And there we go. So I apologize. I know this got a little choppy towards the end. I've been sitting here for a long time trying to edit this video, so I'm feeling weary from talking and from trying to figure out how to edit this so that it's not too broken for you. But at the end of the day, I have to let go of the expectation and the imperfection of this process, and I hope that you'll still be inspired by the project in its entirety. So here is where I was thinking I was going to use the matte gel, because that's typically what I would do, but I end up using the Fabri-Tac, which worked just fine. I use Fabri-Tac for everything in my junk journal projects, so I decided to go ahead and just use that here. It's a little less messy than the matte gel. So matte gel is great for adhering like metal bits or wood bits and things like that. They're a little bit heavier, but the Fabri-Tac works just fine for this. So just adhering that to that corrugated cardboard, and then we're going to bring the butterfly back in. Just using a paper towel just so I don't get my fingers all sticky there. And then we're going to bring the butterfly in and place her first so that we can decide where we want the sentiment to go. And there, isn't she pretty? And I love how the pink looks almost exactly the same as the pink that's in the butterfly, which is exactly the look I was going for. I didn't want it to be overpowering. I wanted the butterfly to be able to pop off the page, but still I want the focal point to complement the background, and I think that we achieved that. And again, I don't know, and I'm not sure what I'm doing here. Oh yes, the white gauze. I thought about putting that under the butterfly and quickly decided that was a terrible idea. So I do try it twice and I just scrap it. Like that was silliness. Too weird. Too weird for her. But anyway, it's always it's hard for me to have a focal point usually that really is separated from the background. I really struggle with that, but I feel like this was a good balance, especially since I have not been doing mixed media. I felt like it worked out pretty well for having been MIA for quite some time. So I'm applying a really generous amount of Fabri-Tac on the back of the butterfly because I want it to grab in every way, and then I drop it on the surface. So I did get goopy glue, which you'll see me kind of dab up here, and then I'll come back to it in a little bit to try to get any obvious globs off of the surface. So I'm just kind of looking at where I want to position that. I did end up going towards the mandala, and then I do realize it's not centered, so I'm gonna fuss with that just a little bit and get it moved over a little bit more to the right, and then we'll attach the sentiment. And there's all the goobers right there. Oh, you know what? I mean, I'd been recording for over 2 hours, and then I've been sitting here for another at least 2 hours trying to edit this video. So it's crazy, you know, but it's worth it. It feels good to be doing a little bit of different messy mixed media on canvas and on a substrate. So that's pretty cool. So, and I think she'll really like it. But I hope that you'll hop over to the blog and read the inspiration for this project, because that's what Sunday's Art of Truth is, as I mentioned earlier in the video. And I do have a bit of, when we did the white splatters, there's a white splatter right there, and it looks like there's a piece of paper back there. So I'm just trying to remove that a little bit. I think off camera I came in with a little bit of the yellow paint, and that concealed it a little bit better. But we're going to go ahead and adhere the sentiment as well. There below is where I landed, and I know it looks pretty grungy. You can't really see the color, but in the close-up photos you'll be able to see how the little bit of accent colors really helped that sentiment. So again, I hope that you'll hop on over to the blog. It will be linked below, and you can read the inspiration and all the thoughts and about this process, as well as the topic of becoming her. So thank you guys so much for stopping by, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.